cause like I mean I guess I could explain who I am.
I think.
Yeah.
Let's go
Okay.
with that.
Well, Samantha, thanks for having me. I'm Closed Loop. I'm a music producer of the past 7 years, and I'm a former drummer. Still do a little drumming here and there. I actually have a drum kit right off camera that I haven't used in years. But we have our good friend Maango here, which is getting some use on the drum kit, knocking the dust and the cobwebs off of it.
The parts
Literally.
that Closed Loop doesn't have anymore, Mango brings to replace
Mango
when they
brings
need to
the
jam.
pedals.
We
for
took all
us.
the webs off it the other day.
We cleaned off the webs at least, and Mango brought his pedals and some peripheral drum stuff, and, we recorded some live looping stuff, and that was great, and we're going to do more of that, and that's why he is actually here today. But besides all that, I'm really glad to be on the podcast. I'm glad that we got a special guest friend with us, and I'm excited to answer your many questions.
And he is a big fan of the Akai MPC and one of the best finger drummers I've ever seen in my life. So, first we're going to start off with your early inspirations and beginnings to your music journey.
So, like, if you're talking going way, way back,
Way back.
I would say, like, being in the car with my father or my mother, listening to music on the radio with them all the time, or at the house they'd always have the radio playing, and they were big fans of like classic rock stuff, and blues and funk, so they listened to like a little bit of everything. Primarily classic rock though is like what my parents mostly listened to, like Elton John and Pink Floyd and just like older bands like that, Lynyrd Skynyrd, just stuff from back in the 60s and 70s. So I grew up with all that stuff, just kind of always playing in the background of my childhood, from being very, very young. And then like as I grew up, like I'd hear these songs on the radio as like a teenager, and I'd be like singing the songs. I'd be like, how do I know the words to these songs? Like I'm like, oh yeah, I've been like listening to these songs for a long time. It's just like I kind of forgot what about them. There's like a little bit of gap from when I listened to them first until when I listened to them again as like rediscovering them as like a teenager. So, and then it kind of gravitated towards like grunge rock, and like I listened to a lot of what my older sister was listening to. She influenced a lot of my listening choices.
Is that what inspired you to become a drummer?
I definitely, one of her friends used to have a drum kit, and I visited her friend's house like maybe once or twice, and like the idea of the drums. I like the idea of them like being loud, and like you could kind of just hit them and make noise, like you didn't really have to know how to play it. So like initially, yeah, that was like I was always kind of drawn to like the drums as an instrument. When I was younger, like I think the whole idea of them just being loud and obnoxious was like kind of fun to me.
It is.
Yeah.
How did you get involved in the electronic music scene? What spiked your interest there?
I honestly I have to credit like a lot of my friends shortly after high school. My friends started going to festivals, like Camp Bisco, and other smaller fests like Harry Brown's up in Maine, and started telling me about like all these experiences that they were having at these places, like as far as like the music and the people and the drugs and like everything else that's involved with a music festival. And they started showing me some of the music acts that they were seeing at like Bisco. So Pretty Lights is like the first time that like I really like gravitated towards electronic music, and it was like because it was less like techno and like house, and it was more of what I was accustomed to listening to at that time, which was like hip hop primarily. It was sample based music, so it kind of meshed right into what I was, and it was an easy gateway for me to be like, oh, there's a little bit of electronic to this, but still organic enough, for me to keep my attention. And then there's a couple other artists, and one of them I'm not gonna name because for reasons I won't talk of, but he was one of the first music acts I listened to, and that inspired me to want to listen to more electronic music. And also Spangle was like a really big influence. Like one of the first electronic musicians I heard was Spangle, and like I hear like horse sounds in one of their songs, and I was just like, wait, yeah, I was just like, wait, like what? You can make music with like this type of sound in it? Like it kind of like broke the fourth wall of like what I assumed music had to be like.
Electronic music does a good job at expanding your library.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely. It definitely is like a tunnel, like it's like a rabbit hole, like once you've like taken the lid off. But then you kind of think about, what is electronic music? I mean, for me, it's anything that's made with an electronic instrument. So I mean that could even go as rock, like rock and metal, like that's amplified music. It's made with you can't make that sound without electricity. So it's still electronic. It's analog, but like it's electronic created music.
Gotcha. Would you say that those early days of your EDM interest inspired you to make that type of music, or do you have like your own specific style that you went with?
I feel like I didn't normally try to I didn't set out to make a sound. Like I didn't start making music and with like I might have had ideas of what I wanted to recreate, but like it almost never would end up being that. Like I would have like something in my head and I would be like, I want to make it this, but then it just like evolves into something that's completely different, but it still works. And I think that's kind of like where some of my sound is carved out, is like through me trying to emulate things and not doing a great job of it, but in return making my own thing out of it.
How did you discover the Akai MPC?
I gotta give a big shout out to my buddy Steve Skillins, who let me borrow one of his. It wasn't an MPC, it was an XR20, and it was basically like a scaled down version of the MPC at that time. It was like it came out in like the mid 2000s, and it was just like a standalone like 16 pad, and it gave me my first taste of like creating loops on a beat pad and stuff like that. He just let me use it. He just let me borrow it. I don't remember exactly if I asked him to borrow it or if he just said, "Hey, do you want to borrow this?" But either way, I ended up borrowing it, and like I used it quite often. And then I was like, I want to get like something more current and up to date.
Fell in love.
Yeah, I was like, oh, this is really fun. Like you can just make little like drum beats on the fly, and you don't need a whole drum kit to do it and stuff like that. And then you can re-record it and loop it and add more sounds and a lot of possibilities. So I initially I was like when I knew I was gonna invest money into a production thing, I was gonna go Akai.
All right. What are some challenges that you've faced and overcome in your early days journey to now?
Challenges?
Yeah.
As far as my music journey as a whole?
Yeah.
I think I've overcome challenges, but it's still a challenge for me to be in front of a crowd. Like, and it's definitely gotten easier in certain settings when I'm in front of a crowd, but I still get really nervous and find that like it's almost not enjoyable for me to some degree to be on stage and like the amount of anxiety that I feel while I'm on stage. And a lot of it has to do with like my own self-doubts and like thinking too critically about or thinking too far into what people think about me and stuff like that. And it's helped me overcome it a little bit on stage, but I still like I get over it because I want to share my music with people, but it's still difficult for me to do sometimes, and I have to really a lot of times just like kind of take myself out of myself and pretend like I'm somebody else when I'm on stage, because otherwise I'll like just think too critically about what's going on, which so I think like my fear of crowds and anxiety, social anxiety, is something that I'm still trying to overcome. And I've been, getting on stage in front of people since 2019, and it's still not like it's easier than it initially was, but it's still difficult for me to do it. And I find that I don't enjoy it as much as I do sharing. Like, I enjoy sharing the music with people, but I don't enjoy like the act of it because I'm so self-doubtful of myself.
Would you say you struggle with balancing your personal life and your music career, like coping with, like, I guess, fame or scrutiny from the generalized public?
Yeah, I don't like to be in the view of the public. I don't want to be a spectacle of anything, and I feel like as an artist nowadays, you kind of have to be like, you have to put yourself out there on social media and out, playing shows or doing tours or whatever. Like, it's really demanding, especially for somebody like myself who has a limited social battery, and the amount of peripheral like things that I can intake, like as far as like sound and lights and just people and interactions. It's a lot, and I think that as an artist you need to be able to be okay with that, and that's another reason why I don't like the live aspect of making music, because I would rather just be like in my own space doing my own thing, kind of away from people, and the creation process is more or less what I prefer to do and why I got into making music to begin with. I never started making music because I wanted to get popular or tour or anything like that. I did it because like I needed to make a change in my life, and that was something to do to make a change.
Can you elaborate on what the change you were trying to make was? Like, what the issue was?
I was
going on
just
in your
trying to
life?
fill my time, but I had a lot of extra time and free time on my hands. So I needed to fill the void of just having all this free time, because I didn't really, up until I quit drinking, I didn't really have like a hobby per se, or anything that I really like invested time into. So when I quit drinking, like, I was like, I knew that I needed to do something to fill my time up with, and I know that music has never let me down, you know what I mean? Like, music's always put me in a positive mood or positive mindset, and it's that's why I choose to do music, because it's something that I can stay engaged with.
So would you say that becoming a musician helped you foster a deeper, meaningful connection to yourself and your possible audience?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. Reread the question again.
Would you say that becoming a music producer offered and fostered a deeper and more meaningful connection to yourself and to your possible audience?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it kind of goes hand in hand, right?
Right.
Just like,
Music is a journey of self-discovery, so it kind of happens automatically, I think.
yeah, they coincide. It's. I mean, if you do it long enough, you're gonna learn something about
So
yourself.
music for you is like an outlet for your expression.
Yeah. Yeah. It's an outlet for sure.
Are there any points you'd like to talk about on how to address mental health and being an artist?
Balance for sure.
Yeah.
I think balance
That's a
is
good
like
one.
a super, kind of touching off what you're saying, I think in today's industry, you have to kind of be able to do a little bit of everything unless you have a solid team.
Mm-hmm.
And that can put you in a tricky spot. It can feel pretty overwhelming. So finding a healthy balance, I think, is like an immediate must.
I agree.
Do you think there's like a stigma for what people want you to be when you perform, like what they're looking to see? And do you have struggle with maintaining like your self-image versus the image society puts on you as a musician?
I don't think too much about that.
Yeah, that's a good question. I try not to think about it like that either. You know, it's like a representation of myself. And the cool thing about music is it's super interpretable, so people can interpret other things out of it. But you know, the big thing for me is just like staying true to who I am.
So this brings me back to a really important issue that I wanted to address in this podcast: image versus morality in the music and arts industry. This is kind of where the conversation is going. If you guys want to elaborate on some of your feelings on this stuff. Do you think it's important to define having a good image and being a good and moral person? Does that mean something of importance to you outside of yourself as a musician and into your personal life?
Yeah, I mean it's a struggle with that because it like you stay true to yourself, but you're still only who you are to the person that's viewing you, you know, like even if you know that, you know, you are a certain way or you're true to yourself and you have these certain beliefs, somebody else could think something completely different of you, and it doesn't matter what you think, it matters what they think, because that's the perception. The public perception is not your view, it's their view. So it's something that I've struggled with, and for me personally, like I guess I default to just staying true to myself because that's like what I've mostly done anyways. I've never really tried to like fit in with things or do things that didn't make me feel comfortable in order to make somebody else happy, or to make like general public happy. So I am very like selfish in the way that I'm not making music for other people, or I'm not like trying to like fit an image for other people. I'm not trying to wedge myself into like some type of category. So I don't really, it does that kind of stuff doesn't really, I don't struggle with that at all.
I think image is pretty important, but if you hyper fixate on it, you can get lost in the sauce pretty quick.
Yeah.
I think with me, you know, like we're all just human. We all have our good days and bad days. And when I try to go to a festival, I try to, you know, give 110% all the time, and you know, represent the best version of myself that I could possibly be. But you know, that doesn't always work out as human beings. And so, like I said before, balance. You still have to find ways to take care of yourself. And you know, Charlie's kind of on point there. Is like if you just try to stay true to yourself, that still represents an image. It, you know, it might not be like the image that other people see per se, but it's still an image that you're trying to take care of and, you know, trying to brand with. And I think that that's like a crucial thing in this industry, is like setting yourself apart in any way, even if it's by doing nothing.
Can
Yeah.
either of you like elaborate on a possible situation where your morals or ethos were tested as an artist?
I have a quick story.
Sure.
An old band I was playing in, I'll keep it nameless for now, but I was playing in a band that we almost signed to Victory Records, who signs bands like A Day to Remember and that sort of genre. And they had offered us a $500,000 sign-on bonus. And it was 5 members of the band, so $100K each. We were all pretty hyped about it. And they told us, come book the show in Chicago, and we'll send a rep out to come view it. And we booked this whole run. You know, it was only like a week-long run, but we booked this whole run to Chicago and back, and played the Cubby Bear right across the street from the Chicago Stadium. And we get there, and it's an empty venue. Rep doesn't show. My vocalist hits him up, and they say, oh, yeah, just book another show tomorrow, and we'll show up. And my vocalist wanted to cancel literally everything.
Your whole tour?
Yeah, to try and appease this guy. And everyone in the band's basically saying, like, why would we do that for this person that, like, didn't even bother to show up? It's like, why would we jeopardize ourselves to appease this person? And I think that when labels get involved, morality does become a factor that you have to really consider. Um, labels will ask you to do things all the time that you don't want to do, whether that impedes on your creative process, the logistical process. Uh, I think you really have to factor in those things. And at the end, we decided that we weren't going to stay for this guy. And it was a really great thing because the very next show that we went to was probably our best show that we had for that run. And we made a lot of good friends and made some fans at that show. And I think morality comes into play once you start, like, once money gets involved, you really have to start thinking about those things.
Yeah. Closed loop, you want to elaborate on that?
I think that's well said.
You don't have an experience you want to share with us about that?
Not really.
Are there any specific role models that you think have successfully balanced image versus morality in the scene that we can currently look up to now?
That's a great question. That's a tough one.
Someone that comes to mind to you, like something personal.
That's so funny. I could give you a million examples of bands that I feel like don't do that.
You can go with that.
Trying to think of a band that accurately does it. Part of why I got into the live loop scene and EDM scene was from artists like FKJ, who kind of combine the best of all worlds. And I think that he in particular does a really great job at staying true to himself through all his branding and the amount of people that get involved. Like some of his sessions require like 20, 25 people on the site, just each doing their own individual job. And when you get a lot of cooks in the kitchen, stuff can get convoluted, but I think he does a great job.
Nice. What about you? Close loop.
I keep forgetting that this is not live, so we don't need to like answer so quickly. You know what I mean? Because I'm gonna be doing a lot of editing. Yeah. So artists that are doing what now? Sorry, these questions are hard.
They're good questions.
They are.
Are there
They're
any
just
role
really
models
depth.
in the industry who you think have successfully
Role
balanced like their image and morality? Like
I don't think there's any role models in the industry.
Someone that you aspire that like inspires you to look up to, like, oh, that's a good precedent.
So you're talking
to
an
set.
Inspiration, not a role model.
A role model.
Because that's different for me. A role model is somebody I base my life and the way that I live my life off of, and somebody that inspires me is like just like somebody that could inspire me creatively. So not in the industry. No, there's nobody that I look up to as a role model.
I kind of look up to you guys a little bit. I mean, like in terms of the work ethic, like every time I've worked with you guys, I've gotten paid.
Thank you.
Like I get paid every time I work with you on time.
Mm-hmm.
Every time we work together, things are streamlined. You have things labeled correctly. There's no back and forth consistently. Like I feel like that's a good thing to kind of look forward to and consider. Like I want to hold the same standard.
Yeah, that's cool. I appreciate you saying that, man. Yeah,
Thank you very much.
That's really nice of you to say. Yeah, I mean, man, role models. It's just like I feel like role models is just like such a strong like word for me. There's people that I look up to and inspire me in the industry, but I just role model is just such a weird word for me. So I would say people that I look up to and inspire me are and have but then also the question was, and they have stayed true to their morality. What was the second part of the question?
Image and morality.
So somebody that I look up to or inspires me and has stayed true to their image and morality.
Someone you think who has balanced their image and morality as being an artist. Someone that you can look up to,
and an artist specifically.
Yeah.
Not like a production company or something. An artist. I mean, 5 a.m. is one of my favorite artists. I'm wearing his shirt right now, and he's like a very humble individual, and I can see his success starting to grow organically and not, I've been listening to his music since like 2017, and I can see now that he's like starting to like gain traction, and it's 7 years later, that now he's just starting. So like his dedication to his craft and humbleness and just work, like the amount of work that he puts into his craft and teaching people and stuff like that.
You have taken production courses from him before as well, and kind of worked in the same realms with him.
Yeah.
Softly.
Yeah, we've well, I'm pretty sure we went and saw 5 a.m. and Serotonin for Strangers live band. That was awesome. And every time we've seen Sam 5 a.m., he's been really cool
and friendly.
Like, friendly and down
supportive.
to earth. Also, I would say, let's throw Ben and Conti's name into there as well from Zebler and Canty Experience, because he's a teacher. He's a teacher of multiple classrooms. He runs his own production classes. He used to do stuff at like Berkeley. He used to do stuff for Ableton. And he's just like a generally like easy person to talk to. He doesn't act like he's above you, or that because he's got all this experience, and he doesn't treat you as like somebody who's lesser, and he's willing to share knowledge and things like that. So I think he's probably somebody who sticks out.
Humility and transparency are big for sure. And it's a great question. I almost feel like it's a trick question, because like maybe the question is, do they stay true to the morals based on your perspective? Because, as an artist grows, they might feel like as they're changing, they're staying true to themselves, but it doesn't accurately represent me anymore, which, it's a tough one.
Do you have any advice for an emerging artist about navigating that dilemma of your image versus your morality, and what's more important? Being true to yourself, or maintaining the image that is what is popular?
Depends on what you're looking for, right?
Bingo.
I mean, if you're looking to portray yourself as a certain thing, then I think your image is important, and sometimes could be more important than your morality if that's what you're focused on. If your image is what you're focused on. I mean, I personally just would rather just do what I want to do, and not have to like fit into a mold or feel like I need to keep an image up of something. Like, I mean, we all have an image, and like, I guess my image would be like a laid back person who doesn't really care and tries to get along with people, but I mean, that's not necessarily. I'm not trying to portray that. It's just how I live my life. Yeah, exactly.
So you would say that your sense of your morals is more important than whatever image people think is you.
Yeah, definitely.
What
I mean,
about you,
but then at the same time, right, is that I want my image to reflect my morals. So I want people to look at me and be like, oh, that's the guy that always does what he's supposed to do, or always pays me on time, or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, I want that to be portrayed of me. I want the positive things that I actually live to be portrayed of me, and not have like, I'd rather try to, have that be an image versus a construed image that somebody might have of me that doesn't even know me.
I like that. That's raw.
Yeah.
Have you guys ever seen the movie SLC Punk?
No, I feel like I've heard of it.
Yeah, it's an old movie, good movie. I played in pop punk and metal bands for years. I started playing shows at like 2012, and then EDM kind of took over like 2019, 2020ish. But that movie always struck with me, because in the movie there's a bunch of punks essentially, and they're talking about rebelling against the social norm. But then somebody in the movie brings up the point about how, well, are you really rebelling because you're going out to these stores and buying hair dye and ripped up shirts and stuff, and it's like you're kind of just contributing to another social norm. It's just not the one that you want.
Right.
And that always struck with me, which is why I like your answer, because it's like, no matter what, you're gonna portray some sort of image.
Yeah.
But not like having to worry about it so much. It kind of just puts you kind of like in a nice zone of like being humble and just being transparent.
Yeah, it's almost like if you worry about your morals, then the image will just kind of follow it. Like you'll lead with your morals, and the image will just follow behind it.
I'll elaborate on like what you were saying about Sam 5am and Ben and Conti from Zebler and Conti. They are both very kind and outwardly friendly and humble folks, despite the success that they've had. So that's the kind of the point of the image versus morality topic, is to talk about what is important. Your morality is your image. How you portray yourself to your fans or to the general public says a lot about you. If they think you're a party animal, you're a party animal.
Right.
If they think you're a kind and generous and loving person, they want to be like that. They want to emulate you. That's why this is an important topic. Because you as an artist are in the public eye, and you are laying the groundwork and teaching people how to behave.
Yeah.
So it's like you are the role model. That's why this is an important topic.
That's a good point. Whether you want to be or not, it happens.
You
when
have that
grow.
responsibility. Being in the public eye to portray a good image and be a good moral person. Do you think that you would envision a future where that is more important, being a good and moral person versus having a bad image?
I envision it, but I know it's not realistic.
That's the point, is we can be that change if we forefront that. These types of topics, we can push people's conscious minds to think of that as more of an option for them.
Yeah, but I feel like people are always going to have egos, and they're always going to be worried about their image regardless of how much normality there is in a boosted morality.
How do you think we should support other artists and even our fans in maintaining their moral integrity?
Well, for starters, when I'm producing with somebody, my mind kind of changes a little bit compared to when I'm producing by myself. When I'm producing by myself, I'm, just doing what I want, being experimental, having fun with it. But when I'm producing with someone else, I try to make a big point to accurately represent that person as well. Mm-hmm. And the first thing we can do when we're working with other people who are growing is get rid of our ego in the process. Ego's a big killer. We all know that.
Yep.
And, if you're working with somebody who you feel is trying to, either view you as an upper or a role model, or even just somebody that I think it's very important to kind of keep those things in regard and, put ego to the wayside. When we had our first conversation ever, I remember saying to you that, like, none of my goals matter right at the beginning. Like, helping other people achieve their goals will automatically help me achieve my goals. And I feel like if more people view it from that side, or, from that stance, we're looking pretty good.
I think that's why we're still standing here today, because our ethos very much fits into that. As Interstellar Rabbit Hole Collective, we want people to collaborate and work together and be the change we all want to see more of in the industry. Let's
Will you pass me those napkins? Thank you.
Let's go on to the next topic here. I think we went pretty deep with that one, guys.
A lot of morality talk.
Yes, and it's very important to talk about those things, because I firmly believe that as an artist, someone in the public eye who people are looking up to you to provide a service or a performance, that it is up to you to set a good example for other people to follow. Because people...
so you mean I shouldn't show up to my set like half drunk and on ketamine?
That's not professional.
Yeah, probably not.
Unfortunately, I don't agree with that. It's not a professional thing to do. I think the three of us in this room here all firmly believe that you show up, you do it right the first time, and you
then
party
you do
after.
the ketamine.
You party after your set is done.
Can we just take a side point to acknowledge that like ketamine sucks in the EDM community? It's like, that's a tough one.
I agree.
I think people are going to partake of things, unfortunately, and lose their inhibitions and self-control because they don't have the impulse control that's required to be responsible under the influence. There's too much pressure from like everyone around you to have a good time, to be fun, and I feel like people need to nip that in the bud. It's like people can have
Straight up.
fun being sober and not drinking and not partaking of ketamine
For real.
Yeah.
and substances that they might not know what it is.
Skirt.
And that's a big problem up in the
Yeah.
East Coast is like people want to take drugs, but they don't want to do any due diligence in the process, and people are getting hurt because of that.
Yeah.
No accountability.
And you
Gotta
know,
test your shit, bro.
Like we're investing big money into these festivals, and we don't want to have to, worry about our friends getting hurt and possible liabilities that shut these things down.
Unfortunately, I'll speak on a personal thing that happened to me at Camp Bisco. There was a kid that was camped near me, and he picked up some substances off the ground, didn't know what it was, and I was like, hey, man, don't take that. You should definitely go
Fent
throw that
test.
away or
Fence strip
test
test.
that if you're going to do it. He was like, no. And I was like, dude, I have a kit. Like, come over here. Like, don't put that in your body. And he's like, no. Dude took 15 steps, collapsed on the ground. I had to Narcan him and call the medics right there.
Damn.
Unfortunately, that's the reality of the scene, and that's something we
Did
should
he
all
live?
work on. Yeah, he lived.
Thank Jesus Christ above.
Yep. He survived, thank God.
Thank God for that young man. I hope he's recovered.
But that's a scary thing too. Is I bring Narcan to pretty much every festival I go to. It's
I
like
keep
just
it
the
on me at
fact
all
that
times.
we have to do that. Is kind of frustrating.
The
in the first
Narcan in my
place.
right hand, man.
I lost my best friend to an overdose, and I never got over that, so I judge no one, and I take the precautions.
Not to mention, it doesn't matter how much money you have or how popular you have or how rich you are, because look what happened to Charles I. You know what I mean? Like,
Exactly.
he was just partying and sniffing coke. That's usually not an issue. And it's scary. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if you're not testing every single batch that you do or every pill that you do, because you can test one pill out of a batch and it might not have something in it, but the other one in the batch might have something in it that
the other part of
potentially
this,
kill you.
too,
So you're really gambling.
the strain on artists who are major touring artists and being in the scene and the how it affects their mental health.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of people will use substances as a coping mechanism for long late hours,
Yeah.
or I miss home, I miss my friends, I miss my family, I'm lonely.
Well, that's why they get drunk every night.
Exactly.
Not even just drugs, but a lot of artists don't have the opportunity to exercise proper diet and
Exactly.
and work routine. It's your body's already taking a toll from lack of proper nutrition and exercise, and then you're pushing yourself even harder if you're taking drugs.
Yeah.
And it can it's gonna hit you back at some point.
Absolute facts.
Oh, did I just shut off?
Charlie needs more fly coffee.
I need more coffee too. This is going pretty good, guys. Thank you.
You have great questions.
Dude,
Honestly, those are
I
those
put
are really well thought out.
a year of thinking into this, and it took me How long's the video?
Were we only doing it for 10 minutes? 12 minutes?
It's been like a half hour, honestly. I think it only recorded some of it.
Is there like a timer on it? If it's not touched, it goes off.
Should be when it's recording.
I've always had fucking issues with that
This is getting heated. This is good shit.
Charlie's sick now.
Oh, me and him have been battling the nasty, like, nasal fucking shit.
I was sick all week. I was worried that when I played the festival that it was just going to keep me sick.
But it did not.
Oh, I, like, just got better yesterday.
Yeah, these questions go hard. And the reason I typed them out the way that I did is not necessarily to like as trick questions, but they're very specific and to the point. Because like Charlie was saying, is a role model versus an inspiration is a very different thing to depending on who you ask. And that's why I worded it that way.
Yeah, you're going to get a lot of, like, very different answers from some of these
Exactly, and that's the point. A dialogue is conversation about whatever. And this podcast specifically is I'm diving into like the harder topics for people to talk about. This podcast is meant to like challenge people like how deep you want to go, how honest do you want to be? Like do you really like where your head's at? Like where cuz enacting change and being a forefront of that is so important to set an example for other people. It's like you don't have to fit in that box. You don't have to maintain this fake image of something that you're not. You can be who you want to be, but people are going to see you for that. And I feel like we should hold people more accountable. Like with the artist that he who must not be named was at the top of his game and his world crumbled because his true colors finally showed. And people are either completely fooled by that and they don't care. They just want to have fun and party. And what does that say? His fans are the fucking worst.
All right, it's back on.
All right.
For how long, but I wish it had a red light to let me know that it's on the backside. That's really convenient.
Okay, so the next order of business here is business ethos and decision making.
Yay. Hold on, let me go to the bathroom real quick. I'm sorry.
No worries. Mango, let's elaborate on this.
What's up?
How do these types of values influence the way that you interact with artists, clients, and collaborators?
Can you repeat it?
Business ethos and decision making, your core value. How do those types of values affect the way you interact with other artists, potential clients, and collaborators?
That's another great question. It's kind of steered me into a specific direction per se. The more, especially playing festivals, the show must go on kind of mentality. I've really begun to dive in to the work that's involved, helping the show run, whether that's stagehand work, volunteer work, my own personal work for the show. And, it kind of ties in with responsibility too. The more you pick up at a show, the more you have to be level-headed and there and present. And I think that with a lot of older shows that I used to play before I got in the festival world, I would treat things just like, I'd show up, I'd play, I'd talk to some people, then I'd leave. And it didn't really give me what I needed, didn't teach me the ins and outs of being able to maintain a show. It didn't teach me skill sets that, I find valuable now, like understanding electronics, understanding psychology with people at the festivals. And, in my opinion, like playing in that older environment kind of set me back a little bit. And nowadays, I'm much more focused on, like making sure that things run very smoothly at whatever events I'm performing at, which requires responsibility. It requires being present. It requires humility. and all in all, it requires a hard work ethic. And I think with the business side of it, it can feel kind of daunting, kind of like what Charlie said before. It can be a difficult balance, and it can be tough to almost intimidating. It can be a little intimidating sometimes, but I think nowadays I try to merge them together and revolve all my work around both of them, which I think in the long run has helped me quite a bit in terms of networking with really strong minds and people in general who just know more than me and I can learn from, which I think is freaking awesome.
Can you describe a situation where your choice of collaborator significantly impacted a project's outcome? Good or bad, ugly, whatever.
What we're going to be doing today. I mean, yeah, it's like look at this situation. I just expressed interest with Charlie about how I was into live looping and how I had some similar gear that he had, and you guys invited me out to some like basic jobs, and then once we worked together a few times, we kind of took it farther, and now we have like a little live loop project that we're kind of working on right now.
To those who don't know, we met Maango at a show, about 2 years ago now, something like that?
No, it was last year.
All right. See, thank you. And he expressed interest in working with us as, kind of like a stagehand, little protege. And over the last year or so, we have taught him what we know about running production, sound lighting, and he's also a collaborator, a musician with us as well.
Yeah, I knew a lot about production, but had no insight about live sound or lights or just stagehand work in general. And you guys taught me pretty much everything I know in that category.
Thank you for
That's
joining
awesome.
our team and being willing to work with us and be teachable. Because we are teachable as well. Like, we don't know
we're still
everything.
learning too, so we learn together.
That's right.
And kind of in the business ethos, it's like when you do that, it kind of just naturally happens that you start getting offered more jobs, and that more people are noticing and want to work with you. And in my opinion, the more responsibility that you accept that you can handle, of course, the more things just kind of fall in your lap. So I think the business ethos is kind of pretty important.
How do you ensure that your business practices align with your personal ethos and ethics?
Sacrifice.
Amen to that.
Yeah, you got to be willing to sacrifice some stuff.
Personal time is one. A lot of people don't understand how much effort it takes to put a show together. They just see you for a few hours at the show, not understanding that it takes weeks of preparation. Getting your gear together, coming up with a plan of a stage design, making sure all the artists have what they need on their tech riders.
Yeah, it's tricky. My mom definitely thinks that like when I go play a fest, I'm just partying the whole time, and it's like that can't be farther from the truth.
My dad says that too.
It's like I don't think you realize how much work actually goes into this. Maybe like one night, when everything's done, you can have a little bit of fun, but not really. It's at any point somebody can come up to you and say, "Hey, we need you for this."
So closely, I think you missed this question, but I wanted to reiterate the question. Can you describe a situation where your choice of collaborator significantly impacted a project's outcome?
I think they all kind of do, right?
True.
They all significantly impact the outcome of the project because they're part of the project. So they all are significant in their own way. They all play their role, and I think Pat from Moon Island said something recent that like resonated with me, and he said basically you're coming together to create something that's outside of you as an individual. Like it's something that could never be created without you coming together with that person and creating it. So like it's really like it's all unique and special to each collaboration.
Each interaction that you have with a new artist or a new collaborator can be either a beautiful or disastrous thing.
And that's the kind of the nice thing working with you guys too is like I've been creating music for a long time, but when I hang out with when I hang out with you guys, like you guys still give me ideas that in a million years I would have never thought of at this current time.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, it takes you outside of how you think about things,
Yep.
and it comes something different, as something new that you would have never even thunk of before.
it's definitely bigger than all of us.
Yeah.
What are some possible deal breakers that would give you a huge red flag as to whether or not you want to move forward with working with an individual or crew, or elaborate on that one?
Bad hygiene.
That's a good one.
Because if you can't keep yourself clean, then your business ethic is probably lacking.
You need some deodorant there, fella.
I always need deodorant.
And that's just like 100% like facts. Like, it sounds funny, but it's definitely like, I mean, luckily a lot of the people we work with, that's not an issue.
That's not an issue,
but
yeah.
but like there's plenty of people that could use better hygiene, that and that just says a lot about how you carry yourself in general. Like, as far as business goes and just you as a human being.
Mm-hmm.
I think like deal breaker for not working with someone, I think communication is huge for me. I think communication says a lot about somebody's business ethic and how serious they are about wanting to accomplish something. So I know that we're all busy, and we're all like, some people are running businesses, some people have messages fucking coming out their ass on their DMs.
Mm-hmm.
But if you want to make something work, you will make it work. So like, if there's a lapse in communication, or you haven't heard from someone in 2 weeks, and then they give you the spiel, oh, they're crazy busy, that doesn't do it for me. That's not a good enough reason for you to not get back to me about something that we're trying to like organize and make. And that happens a lot, I've noticed, since we've started like throwing shows, and almost every time we collaborate with another party, there's some type of something. It's not as streamlined as when it's just us taking care of things, and that's because we're together all the time and we can communicate the things that we need. But as far as I will say, let me give a praise to like Robot House, who's always done what they say they're going to do. They're always 100% communicative. Like, when we have questions about things, they want to bounce ideas off of. They want to work together to make sure that the best show happens possible. So I give a shout out to them.
We love you, Robot House.
And also like the Funky Tree House, the Funky Communications, which we just did our first event. We just worked with them for our first time at the Under One Roof event in Providence, and that was again a very like streamlined thing where there was no issues. There was plenty of communication. I got the deposit up front. I got paid at the gig for the rest of the payment. Like, they're just very upfront and professional. And those, so on the opposite spectrum of your question, those are some companies and some things that stand out to me as far as when I'm doing business with people.
I think attitude and ego are big for me. I don't want to say any names because this isn't directed towards anyone, but like with social media, I watch social media pretty carefully. And when I see, for instance, if I see an artist who's playing a show and they say something along the lines of like, if you don't come to my show, you're not really my friend, like that instantly makes me not want to support you.
I feel like, I'm going to elaborate on that. I feel like, too, you can tell if it's a joking manner or it's condescending in their tone.
Of course.
Or like, if you look in their eyes, you can kind of tell what's going on.
Yeah, I think, like my whole stance is like, nobody owes us anything.
True.
We owe music everything.
None of us would be connected without music. It's the thing that brought us all together. So it's very important to note that music led us to the direction of finding our people.
Yeah.
The people
It
that
really did.
we really vibe with. We don't have to be fake with. We can be ourselves with. Good, bad, ugly.
I think Madonna said it best. Music makes the people come together. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Also, let's elaborate on what Maango said about social media. And That is a very, very big thing today. A lot of artists can't make it big without a social media presence, a strong presence. Now, for me, when I have a new collaborator or a new crew or somebody that wants to work with me, you know what I do? I crawl their social media. I look at their interactions with people. I look at who their friends are. I look at how many selfies they take. If it's a me, me, me attitude and not a we, it's a no from me.
No,
feel that.
I agree though. Is ego is a very big thing, and you have to have a little bit of ego, and it can be used as a tool. But it can go overboard pretty quick.
Definitely.
I mean,
Yeah, it's slippery.
Definitely.
The ego thing is hard because we all need to have some type of sense of ego in order to be doing this. You know, like there's
Right.
some part of us like wants to be like, hey, look at me, like look at what I made. You
Yeah,
know,
I mean-
like there's, but it's not necessarily a bad thing unless
It's
you
balance.
let it. Yeah, balance, like you were saying before.
well, it is tricky because whenever I get offered to perform or work something, it's either through email, through phone, or through social media.
Yeah.
Right.
So you do have to maintain a presence, and it's super important. But it can get slippery real quick.
I want to elaborate on the social media aspect to this as well. When you're conducting business, social media back and forth in the message box is not the way to go. It's either a phone call or a direct text or an email. That is the best way to conduct your business because one, it's more private. Two, less hackability for people to know the ins and outs of your personal business conversations with someone or something.
Also, I agree with that, and I propose 2025 is the death of group chats. I want that to be officially no longer the way that we organize events and festivals and shit like that. I agree with you. I think email chain is king.
Yeah.
Like I just don't understand why people don't use email anymore. It's like it's because it's too old or something. Like you can literally Google, if you use Google or Yahoo or any of the email services, you can search keywords and
True.
you can find the shit that you're looking for. And if you're on a group chat, you're fucking scrolling up and down. People are promoting their own music. They're promoting other events that they're playing. It's like,
Well, that's the frustrating thing for me is if it is a group chat, you can add everyone, but I don't want to skim through days worth of a group chat just because
Right.
people aren't using the chat professionally and they're
Yeah.
just chatting.
yeah.
Amen.
And even if they are like, the group chat is too many people in one thing. They need to be more segregated, like so that like, oh, the production team has this, and then the artist team
good
has
point.
this.
I like
and
that.
Then, yeah, because then maybe there is a lot of important things being exchanged. But it doesn't mean anything to you. It doesn't pertain to you, so then you still have to scroll through it all, regardless if it's useful information to somebody else or it's just somebody like being egotistical and promoting their own shit.
I like a more pointed group chat. Like if you're working a festival, the production team for that stage has their
Right.
own chat.
Right.
The artists who for that stage have their own chat.
Agreed.
Like if you got 3 different stages, you got
Three different
three
chats
or
for those
4
stages.
different chats. You got the audio people, you got the visual people, then you got the artists. And that's it. That's how it should be.
No, I like
Streamlined.
I like your point though, Charlie, where it's like we've been running shows for decades using CC chains. It's
Right,
like,
right.
It's a
Tried and true, baby.
method
That's
here.
what they use at Aura when we get the calls for Aura. They fucking it's all email. They don't text us. They
Yeah.
don't fucking message us on DM.
All right, guys. So how do you balance artistic and business aspects of your career? Because we, as Rabbit Hole, do production stuff
Yeah.
for producing shows, and we also run a label where we put music on for other artists. So how do you balance the two worlds, the artistic versus the business?
I personally however, I'm more of like I don't necessarily do things in a scheduled manner as much as I probably should, but I'm more of like if I feel like doing it, I'm gonna do it. Like if I have the motivation to do it in that moment, I need to like seize that and that opportunity and just do it. So it's my balance kind of just comes from how I'm feeling mentally. So like if I've got downtime and like there's not a whole lot going on, then maybe I'll focus on some label stuff or creating some content, like some promo content, or just some like frivolous like business things that don't push my creativity much in any way. That's like I just kind of do it when I feel like it, and I know that might not be, that doesn't work for everybody. Some people need more like structured, like, oh, in the morning I'm gonna do this, in the afternoon I'll create music. Like I just do things when they come to me. And like that being said, I haven't created like new music in quite some time. I've basically for the past year just been backtracking and slowly releasing things that have been sitting on for a long time, and honing my live sets more for the MPC. So that ties into the creative like process, but it's a lot of like just like mundane stuff to get there. And I guess for right now, my creative spark is not there as much as more the want to get things like prepared and polished for live setting stuff. So it comes and goes, as far as, and the business thing is like, I try to treat the business part as far as the production and the label stuff. I try to treat that as business. Like that's not like the music creative stuff. That I need to treat that more like business, because then it will get done in a timely fashion, because we need to meet release date schedules and certain things that need to be done beforehand. There needs to be enough time
Promotion
in between.
and
Yeah, exactly. So you
and-
need to actively be thinking about these things and planning them out, and like, putting them on a schedule and making sure that all the fucking I's are dotted and T's are crossed, that like when you're uploading this stuff to the distribution service, for some people that if they've never done it before, there's just like a lot of little things that need to be perfectly correct when you're entering the information in, like how the artist name's spelled, the capitalization of the artist name, like how
or alternate symbols, which
Yeah,
could be in their artist name,
their
which are
legal
hard to.
their legal name. Yeah, there's just like a lot of little things that, and if it's not done properly, then there can be issues and with the distribution. And so I try to treat that, and as far as the balance for myself as an artist, I lack in the finding the balance of treating my music like a business and just creating it for the sake of creating it, because that's just what I've been doing for the past 7 years. I feel like I don't invest enough time into the business aspect of myself as an artist, because we run the label, and because I find more like joy in helping other people than just pushing into my own needs, like, and propelling myself as an artist.
Well, it's tricky too. Like I empathize with you saying like the creative process is tough when you get real nitty gritty into the business, because my best creative work comes from uninterrupted flow state, which
Same.
when you start, scheduling a ton of things in advance, you start to lose the ability to have uninterrupted flow state for long periods of time. And when I'm producing, 12 hours can go by in the blink of an eye. So like you really can't afford that all the time,
Sure.
I do want to say that Close Loop and I have been collaborating sometimes late at night at like midnight. So we did have a couple of new things made
That's
recently in the last few months or so that we have not finished.
Yeah.
I mean, y'all got bangers.
Thank you.
Y'all got bangers.
You as well. Me and you as well.
Yeah, a lot of I think that's I feel like yeah, it's tough, man. Honestly, I feel like I would benefit greatly from like a PR team, or like somebody managing the things that I don't want to manage for myself as an artist, because I just like, I don't know, it's weird, because I couldn't, the amount of time that I invest into promoting our artist I could put into myself, but I don't, because I would rather invest that time into the artist. I get more fulfillment out of doing that than just like feeding my own need.
I feel this so wholeheartedly because I feel the same way. We put a lot of effort into maintaining and juggling a lot. So it's not just about us and our flow as artists. It's about like our collective team and our collective dream. It's like I believe everybody at this table looks at it is that if we are not working together and supporting each other, like none of us are ever going to get to the top.
Yeah.
So it's like we're not stepping on toes or putting anyone above anybody else, but it's like a delicate balancing act. Like we don't have a lot of time because a lot of us work professional jobs, are performing artists and producing shows. So it's like, where do you find the time?
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I was saying like that would be a beneficial thing to have somebody like managing, and we've said this before too, and like, there's a lot of man, running a business is literally a full-time job, and it's not just a full-time job, it's like a full life job. Like you're doing it all the time, and like you said, we don't have a lot of time. We have other jobs and stuff like that, and it's like you can only expel so much energy in a day and do so many things, but I feel like we would greatly benefit from somebody being able to manage the social media side of things, because it's not what me and you are like what we care to do. We don't necessarily like to be on the social media, and if somebody was treating it like a job, and that they like every day they had to make some type of promo post, because let's face it, if you're not, it's the internet, or Facebook I should say, has become so spammy that if you're not consistently posting shit, you're just going to get forgotten about, because
Instagram specifically caters to people who are using the platform the most. So if you're not posting, multiple times a day, the algorithm's automatically just going to snuff you.
Right. Exactly. And that's the thing. And it's like, we don't have that kind of time to just be online all the time. Like when I'm at work, I'm working. Like I can't, I have no time to just like be on my phone. So like, and then when I get home, I want to work on production stuff, programming lights, like stuff for the label. Like there's just a bunch of other shit that that needs to be taken care of. And it's easy to overlook our individual things as artists because we're trying to collaborate. But we do that because we would rather collaborate and help other people who are not sure how to navigate like through doing all this stuff.
It's very rewarding to help facilitate the navigation of the waters of the industry with people that we love their company and love their spark and their ingenuity and their creativity.
Yeah, it's very, I think like a big one is, learning how to recognize and utilize tools that benefit in these situations. Like all of us, have up and down moments with social media. And, like a great tool I could name drop like Hootsuite. It's a scheduled poster that, you like maybe once a month you just plug in all these posts that you want to do. You set the dates for them and it'll automatically drop them on your business accounts at those times. Just learning what new tools are available because it's growing and changing so fast.
Yeah.
Consistently learning new tools, utilizing them, asking for help, I think is super important. Knowing when you need help is super important.
Yeah, there's, and that's another thing too, is like, also letting, giving someone access to, like letting somebody else manage
the trust
things.
has to be there.
There's right, and
a lot
that's
of trust.
Yeah, exactly.
Maintaining our image and our ethos is so important because we won't budge on what we've built up to this point. That's how we are going to do it, and that will never change.
Well, that's the tricky part too. Is it takes a long time to build something, but it takes a short amount of time to break it.
To fuck it up. Yeah.
So we're gonna switch gears to some more like core questions. In this segment, we are going to focus on making the music and arts industry a better place.
Fuck yes.
So, first pointed question: how can the music and the arts industry become a more inclusive and diverse place? What steps can we organize to make and ensure equal opportunity for underrepresented groups, which is one of the fundamental things we founded our collective on?
All right. I would like to take this opportunity to give a little background of my like stage production background or music, like how much music background I have. I literally just started doing stage production like a year and a half ago. Prior to that, I had zero experience with it, like whatsoever. I had helped like organize renegades and stuff like that, and done parties in my basement. But prior to me starting production work like a year and a half ago, I had never done it before. So this whole realm of things is very new to me still. And like just like we did work at Aura in Portland, Maine,
Yep.
and
For Dopapod.
for Dopapod, but we were doing production work, and prior to that I had done it a few times before that, but that was my first time ever working in like a professional like setting. All the other times it had been like me just kind of going to a bar or a club and setting lights up and stuff like that, but that was like like first time seeing how a professional load in, load out, like how it's done, and I liked it a lot, and if I was like closer to that area, I would prefer to do like stage work like that full time.
Everything that we have been building up in the repertoire of Interstellar Rabbit Hole has come from a lot of years of doing underground and, do-it-yourself events.
Yeah.
So for us to getting opportunity in the bigger scope of professionalism in bigger venues with more professional bands and equipment has been a blessing for us because we put a lot of work into this and we're finally getting to that point where we've been working so hard to get to.
Yeah.
Realistically, post-COVID, the first show that Rabbit Hole threw was back in October of 21.
Yeah.
So your production stuff goes all the way back that far, but
Right.
not on that spectrum that there's a whole different ball game from what we
Sure.
were doing considering up to that.
That's a good point. I guess I didn't. Well, and that's kind of. Well, I guess when I said renegades, I would say that was kind of similar to like a renegade setup because
Yeah.
that show we did at like a VFW or something like that.
Yeah, I found the venue short notice, and they gave me a good deal on it, and they were really cool about it.
And Symbioso was shitting on my speakers. Shitting on my poor little soundbox speakers.
I think he had the Rockvilles back then.
I did, but I also had the
Yeah.
soundbox. Yeah.
I got Harbinger tops, man. They're no good.
Hey, I got Harbinger tops too, man.
Well, the other thing
They
too, I'll note is that
The drivers are upgraded though.
the Interstellar Rabbit Hole Collective sound rig that we have is a Franken rig. We like rebuilt it from the ground up
Yeah.
and
Pulled
put
everything
nasty
apart.
drivers in it, and we're pushing like what 6,400 watts at least with our sound rig.
Yeah, I mean, just the subs are doing 3,000.
Exactly.
Like, we have 3,000 watt amplifier for the sub, and then the tops and everything else.
We
are
always challenge
added.
ourselves to that next leg up. With every show we do, we add more production value and effort to what we've learned works and doesn't work.
There's one question particularly I want to ask you both, but just to touch on this real quick.
Sure.
I think work etiquette, drug etiquette, like we mentioned before,
Yes.
that's not really relative to us, but, people are coming to do these things and to teach people how to do things safely.
Yeah.
In an environment where we're trusting a lot of responsibility on people, I think is super helpful. But touching on this question, I wanted to ask you both, how do you view gatekeeping in this industry?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Because, I used to think that gatekeeping was a big problem for a while, but Maine's a very small state for us.
It is
And-
a very pervasive problem, big or small.
And, like Aura, I'm sure gatekeeps a little bit because not only do they want job security, but when they involve people, they want to make sure that they're as
They're gonna
professional
do
as
good
possible.
work, yeah.
In regards to our involvement with working with Aura, is we got grandfathered into that because of the quality work that we do with certain individuals attracted their interest in working with us because of our professionalism.
Also, I'll say that another reason why that was orchestrated is because I tried like I reached out, you know, and I reached out to somebody that worked there that we had worked with in the past at a different event. And I just reached out to him. I said, "Hey, man, do you have any, like, I didn't even know he, like, would be able to get me a job there. I just said, I thought maybe, like, something on his own, some, like, private event that he was doing, just, hey, if you got any work, let me know." And then he put us in touch with the production manager there. And the reason why he was so gung-ho about having you work there is because he knew that I worked well, and that, you know, and that I told him that we did our thing as Interstellar Rabbit Hole, and
I
then I told
greatly
him about
appreciate
you, and
you sharing the love of that
yeah, and then
opportunity.
I told him about Maango, and he was 100% game to have Maango on board too.
Yeah, I got to thank you
So-
guys big time for that, because now I'm on the call list for Aura.
Right.
It's like, dude,
Hopefully, we'll all be working together doing more shows like Dopapod in the near
absolutely
future.
awesome.
Yeah, and like we worked with Matt Perry from Adverse Effects, like he works there too, and that another thing is like when you're doing fun work and you're working with people that you're cool with and that are also fun, it's like it makes the day go by so fast, and it's like, oh shit, I'm getting paid to do this. Like we got paid to go see a show, have fun. Yes, we worked hard when we had to work. It was a lot of physical work and it's a lot of walking around and shit like that. But you got paid to do it, and I feel like that's worth it, like 100%. Like I would rather do that than go out and blow $100 in a night buying a ticket, parking, drinks, and it's just not the same type of fulfillment for me anymore.
So do you think, like, in that perspective, like I see pros and cons to gatekeeping, you know, I think, like, in some areas we need less of it, but, you know, in terms of professionalism, like, you know, it's not a bad thing.
I firmly believe in doing the right thing. And in regards to gatekeeping, this is not exactly the same thing or meaning. It's kind of got a dual meaning. The people that work with Rabbit Hole, I don't gatekeep them, but I try to buffer and protect them from the industry's dark side.
The crap.
Yes. So, like, I go out of my way to try to make sure that they get proper care and are treated with respect and integrity in regards to their needs as an artist and their performance value. Like, I've been working on doing, like, contracts for people and trying to, like, go out of my way to make sure that they are protected and given what they are promised. You know, and making sure that money is talked about, because it costs people so much time and money to be a performance artist. Your bookability and your you know, control of the crowd is one thing aspect of it, but it's like the time you put into curating your performance, the amount of money and time you have to travel as well is very, very important.
And that's a big thing in festivals too. Like when we're making profit, we should be sharing in the profit. When we're losing out, like we should be sharing in the losses. You know, everyone's putting in a lot of work on this.
So we just did our very first Undead Headbangers Ball, and we've kind of been toying with the idea of like this is our last show for a while, because we're focusing on other things that are much more pressing at this time. Speaking on like finances and personal time and, you know, life stuff. But that show went way better than we anticipated it. And outside of, you know, the general costs and, you know, back and forth, Charlie and I decided that we'd split things evenly. And then we kind of put a little bit extra aside because the show went better, that I decided to give the artists a bonus on top of what they were promised, because I felt that that was doing the right thing. Regardless of keeping all the profit to myself or to our business name. And like, you know, we always roll back whatever we make on a show back into the next thing or merch or whatever. But because it went so well, I was like, this is my opportunity to pay forward to the people that have supported us for multiple years.
And that's kind of why I, you know, name dropped you guys when I was thinking about role models, is because, like, look at the Palladium show. The Palladium show you guys took without a guarantee. It was just a great opportunity, but you still offered to pay all the artists, and the artists appreciated that so much that when push came to shove, everyone said, like, we don't need to get paid. Like, we were just happy to be a part of it with you. And you don't see that happen much. Like, you really don't see that happen much.
I was gonna say, back to the gatekeeping thing. Like, I feel like we gatekeep for the right reasons. You know what I mean? Like, we're gatekeeping so that the people that are gonna collaborate, that are gonna share your new music, that are gonna come out to your shows, those are the ones that we're bringing to the forefront, or that we're putting on lineups. You know, if you come out to a show and you're hammered, and you're in our ears, and you're in our face, and you're blabbering, and you're asking, how come you don't put me on a lineup? How come you guys haven't put me on a lineup? Like, that's not the move.
Because you
Like,
don't have
that's not-
integrity
That's
or
not the
self-respect.
way to approach it. And if that concept is so foreign to you, then you need to reevaluate, like, how you approach things. Like, so that's the type of stuff that we gatekeep
Right.
against. You know, and it's not. We don't do it because we're gatekeeping the people that aren't popular or aren't gonna sell tickets or whatever. We just gatekeep so that we can conserve our peace, and how we operate things, and work with people who we know are going to be solid and are going to reciprocate what we try to do for them.
The other part of this, the gatekeeping, is there are a lot of folks that want to work with us, that are on a roster of people that are on my radar for, like, bookability and stuff like that. But it's like, I'm looking at your social media, I'm seeing how you're carrying yourself, and it's like, if your life is a wreck, if you're bitching all the time that nothing's going right for you, it's like, you're not a good fit for representing our brand and our name. Because it's like, if you're an artist performing on my lineup and you can't even get a ride to your own show, that's a huge red flag for me, because that means you're not responsible. What if you show up late?
Yeah.
What if, you come to the show and your behavior is erratic and you're under the influence? That's gonna blow back on not just our name, but the people we represent, that we're trying to protect from that behavior. It's not a personal thing. It's like the cost of doing business and maintaining a positive and moral image, I believe, is there's a lot more riding to just throwing a show or throwing a party. It's like maintaining the peace and equality. Is like, if you can't act right, then it's like, it's a no for me.
And I've touched base on this with Charlie in the past, but like, this is the first year where I started taking clients for mixing and mastering. And part of the reason you do have to separate business and be a little stern about it sometimes is, the first thing I noticed is all the people that I for lack of a better word, gave the homie hookup to for mixing, is those are the people that gave me really high expectations, where, like, the people that I just gave them a flat
clients,
rate,
right.
the clients that I gave a flat rate to, kind of left me to my work, because they understood that they hired me to do this thing for them.
Yeah.
And it can be tricky sometimes when you're working with people that you want to see do really well, but they just kind of are expecting, too much, or just not the right things in general. It can be very challenging to get past that.
The professional development of your brand and your artistry here is a very, like, important topic, because you can't make anything better or make the scene a better place if you are constantly working with individuals who are showing you why they're not a good fit. Like, if you keep making the same mistake over and over again, it's just never going to get better. If you're supporting people that are egomaniacs, that are just going to party and use it as an excuse, as, oh, look at me, I'm on this lineup, that's not sustainable. That's going to implode on itself.
Right. Everyone can have a bad day every now and then, but it's the consistency that really shines through.
And if you act like that, the type of people that are going to support you and be there to support that event are going to be what? Just like you. And that's a huge problem in itself, is you attract what you are. And if that's, borderline gatekeeping, that's for the right reason.
Right. That's what I was saying.
Yeah. So what kind of, like, changes do you think are necessary to ensure fair compensation for artists and creatives? Like, what moves can we do to make that more beneficial to people?
I would say like standardizing contracts. 'cause that basically just everything else after that is kind of peripheral. Like if you have a contract in place, then there's no questions about anything from either side. The issue is the stigma of asking for a contract, right? When you're friends or homies with somebody and you've had like this relationship and rapport of just word of mouth, shaking a hand and not having any type of contract, and then like kind of when you like what going back to what you're saying about your mixing and mastering services, when it's like a homie, they're all of a sudden they're like, what's this, like why do I need a contract and stuff like. But then a new client that you just met, you show them a contract and they're like, oh, this is normality, like this is just part of the business aspect of things. So I think trying to normalize and not stigmatize asking for contracts, and it's so easy nowadays to just get a draft of a contract, you know what I mean, that like, or you could have AI write you one.
And it's especially, at the growth rate that you guys are at, where, you're going to festivals, you're bringing, upwards to $10,000 worth of equipment every time you're driving. You're bringing lights, you're bringing speakers, subs, sounds, you're bringing your own equipment to perform with.
We're also bringing quality performances of artists that we work with.
It's kind of a no-brainer at that point. Like when you're bringing tens of thousands of dollars of equipment to the point where you need to have it insured when you're bringing it out, like you really can't jeopardize that. It's so necessary to have something in writing. There shouldn't be any shoulda, coulda, woulda.
Very true.
Yeah, and that's what, like, I feel like that translate from production to booking yourself for a show. Like there's been so many times in the scene that we've seen around here, in Maine or New England, that a promoter starts getting ousted for not paying X, Y, and Z.
That's why contracts are important.
And that's why the contracts are important, because but this is where the issues lie, is that because if everybody is looking for a contract and looking to get paid, most of these events wouldn't happen, because a lot of these events are built on the backs of the people that are not getting paid and that are just volunteering and doing way more than is expected of them. And that's why I think it's important to just have contracts all around, and we've, like, since we've started implementing always getting a contract, or like sending an invoice or a quote or whatever, there's been a little bit of like, not backlash, but like, people being like, oh, well,
apprehension.
Like, why are you charging me for this, or why, like, this itemized thing? And I'm like, well, then I have to explain like the cost of like, repairing the vehicle, wear and tear on my car, like all these peripheral things that people don't think about, and there's been a little bit, but also I've also had some pleasure in being able to negotiate with people as well.
Yes.
And some people being respectful enough to be like, I understand why you need to charge me for this, but can we figure out some type of alternative? And 100% of the time we come to some type of agreement if they're willing to do that.
It's always worth a conversation to negotiate. There's always some wiggle room. We have to protect ourselves, but at the same time, we want to be doing this for people.
Yeah, exactly. Like, we want the shit to happen. Like, and we want to be doing it. Like, I find joy in doing the production side of things, so it's important that it still happens, but that we're all being compensated fairly.
But the cool thing about the contracts, like I mentioned earlier, is like eventually the quality of the clientele does improve.
Yeah, exactly.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Since we started implementing the way we do business differently, with like the invoices of like possible costs, what kind of equipment you want, what are your needs, and what type of artist you're looking for, that fits the criteria of what they're asking, we can give them a very accurate like price frame and be a little flexible on it.
Yeah, exactly.
The transparency and accountability is increased in this situation. The client knows exactly what we are bringing to the table and at what cost it is, which I think paints a bigger picture of we've got our stuff together and we know what we're doing.
Yeah, and it takes some of the anxieties and wonders of are they gonna show up? Are they gonna do what I'm paying them to do? You know what I mean? When they see the itemized things and they see it, then they know what to expect. Like, they know that the person's gonna do this for this amount of hours and blah blah blah. So Yeah, I think that's important to note that, like, yeah, the quality of the clientele that we have, like, since we started being a little more firm about our pricing and contracts and stuff like that, has been increased. Like, maybe the number of jobs is not increased, but I think that will come with time.
It's we've heavily slowed down after blunders of like what happened last year with a specific festival I will not name. We poured so much of our time, resources, and finances into it. And it ended up being a huge, massive hit for us that we are still working to pay back and pay off certain things in regards to this. But the beauty of that interaction and providing a service for that particular event is the artists that we got to work with, the people that now adore us and respect us for what we offer. And we have given new opportunity to budding artists who have not had a chance to hit the threshold yet. We put their music out for them. We've supported them. We've gotten them booked for shows. And to us, that's the best type of payment that we could have gotten, even though the financial burden of that situation on us was hard. It weighed out with the opportunity that, like, we made new friends and family. We helped support new artists and put them on to a greater world where they didn't even know was possible for them.
And you have to value those things because sometimes the payment isn't just monetary.
Exactly.
It's so much bigger than that. But protecting yourself is so important because, like you just said, all it takes is one festival to put you under.
Yeah.
Put you in a hole for a year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for us, it's definitely been a challenge to like find the balance of doing the work for free because you're or not for free, but for very little money because you're the new guy and because nobody even knows who you are, you know. And I think it's tough because you need to be willing to do that in the beginning because most people aren't just gonna like without any type of word of mouth or any type of previous experience are most likely not gonna just throw you into some type of situation like that unless they're desperate and it's like I just said, built off of the backs of people that are willing to do the work for little to nothing.
We've been taken advantage of.
Yeah,
Point blank. But we've learned from our mistake.
But at the same time, taking advantage of, yes, but at the same time, we learned from the experience, like you just said. Like, you know, we learned to network with the people that we did. You know, we didn't squander the opportunity,
Absolutely,
even knowing that it wasn't going to be monetarily like gainful.
And I'm learning that currently too. So like when I was playing it back in Acadia, we had a manager who also helped us with booking, and you know we got paid. Especially our last year, I think we got paid for every show. And now coming back out as an EDM artist, I'm booking my own shows and realizing I probably should take a few of these shows for less money to get myself back in. But you know how long
when
can you really do
when
that?
do you cut, when do you make the cutoff, and yeah, that's really tough, especially as far as artist performance. That I struggle with that very very much so because it kind of ties back into like the image thing that we were talking about, but like, you know, how much is your 1 hour performance really worth? You know what I mean? It's like for the amount of physical and even mental work that you're doing to put together a 1 hour set, like compared to what, you know, the physical work that it takes to build a stage or something like that, you know what I mean? And most of these headlining artists are getting paid because they're getting the money they're getting paid because of their image, because they draw so many people out and stuff like that.
That is a good point.
You know, and then it's like, and then these guys, stagehands, are making $20 an hour fucking lifting 200-pound speakers for hours.
Well, like you said, you know, I've thought about this a lot because like you said, a lot of these festivals happen based on volunteer work.
Yeah.
And, you know, there was a particular festival, I'll keep it nameless, but there's a particular festival where I was asked to come early. I was asked to do graphic design. I was asked to do stagehand work. I was asked to provide gear, and I was asked to provide a performance. And, you know, for me, you know, it was an out-of-state show. All I was asking is, you know, me and my girlfriend need a bed. Like if we're coming early,
somewhere to sleep.
We need somewhere to sleep if we're coming
If
early.
we're doing
That is
all
an
this work.
absolutely more than fair request.
Yeah.
I'm doing all this. Please give us
Right.
a
At least a
comfortable
place.
place
And-
to lay our head
and
to
you know,
rest.
4 different job titles. At the end of it, we didn't get a place to sleep, and I was a little bit salty about that.
Did you get a thank you?
We did get a thank you, but I mean, how much does that really
you can't
mean?
sleep on
right?
a thank you.
Exactly. That was the point I was trying to make. Is like respect where respect is due. If someone is offering their time, money, and resources, and you're not willing to at least make this person comfortable, have a nice place to sleep at night, or give them a meal or something throughout the day, at least once a day, and have access to like clean water. It's up to the individual what they want to put themselves through.
Yeah.
But the integrity and the respect mutually is not there. They're in my mind, they are taking advantage.
Right, and that goes back to us saying like that why the contract should be normalized, and that probably was a scenario where it was like a friendly exchange of homies or whatever, and you didn't normally there was no need for contracts and stuff like that, and it all kind of just comes together last minute, and part of the blame is on the person that accepts it, you know what I mean, because they're you know what I mean, they are accepting it, but you like to assume that there's going to be some base level they're going to cover you as far as at least having somewhere to sleep, that's crazy, but that just goes back to why the contract should be in place, because if you had a contract saying you need to at least have a room for me or somewhere to sleep, then you would know that was at least covered, but then it probably wouldn't have happened, right? You probably wouldn't have got the chance to play or get involved with the...
Well, that's the tricky part, too. As much as I can talk about, the hosting and promotion side of it, bless my heart, those people go through a lot. They're dealing with hundreds of people.
Right.
Trying to finagle all these people to
Sure.
fit in the right spot, and
Bagel that bagel.
I don't know if I could do that personally.
Sure, yeah, no, and again, I feel like some people end up just getting thrown into that position, and that can become a nightmare as well, like logistical nightmare if you don't have a on point person, hospitality and shit. Yeah,
I'm sure experiences like that definitely also affect people's mental and physical health.
definitely, 100%.
And they don't talk about this enough. Is you're stressing the person out, you're giving them way too much to do, and you're not doing anything to make them comfortable. They're just there to facilitate your need.
And to make things even worse, a lot of times the people themselves that are organizing the event are doing nothing to help or rectify it, and they're just assuming that they just they don't want the responsibility. They hired somebody else, or somebody else is volunteering to take care of that, and they've got bigger fish to fry. I've seen that a lot too, where they just don't get involved with
that
the
there
issues.
should be some type of volunteer training and coordination for people that are long-term going to be involved in the festival scene, and there needs to be some addressing on this, because it's one thing to have thousands of volunteers a year that want to be involved in multiple festivals all over the country, but it's another thing entirely to lay very important roles into people's hands who have absolutely no idea on how to actually facilitate the needs of the role.
It's really a safety issue too.
Exactly.
It can be at some point, you know what I mean? That you could be jeopardizing people's safety and or lives because you're not fit to fill a role that you're volunteering for.
I think checklists are so important in those categories, because
Volunteer coordinator position of somebody who knows what's going on to be in control of those necessary volunteers in where they're at.
So Ellie's done door at several events, and one of the things I've always noticed is there's no checklist for when things go wrong. And if you have a volunteer, when something goes wrong, it's just deer in the headlights.
Right, that's a good point. Yeah, there's no protocol to follow, kind of.
Yeah. So at my professional job, I deal with volunteer coordinating all the time. I'm in a position of management and power, and I tell volunteers often what to do for big events and shows. And they have, a lot of them, been there long term, so they know the deal. But in a festival setting, those people are volunteers because they want to have fun.
Yeah.
They want to get in for free or a discounted price, or they want access to something.
Exactly.
And
they're probably
They
not
want their
fit.
shift to be over.
Yeah.
Exactly. They're going to do the most minimal effort on average. I'm not saying everyone. I'm just saying that like there's no preparation for these people. They're just thrown in. There's really no like wrangling. You need to focus on this specific thing. There needs to be like when you show up to the festival, this is the person in charge of what you guys are doing. Delegate how it's done, show them how it's done, and then you know what I mean? It doesn't need to be like so free form because that's when a lot of things can go wrong, and that's something we can do to make better.
Yeah.
That's a good question.
Yeah. Let's see here. Professional ongoing development and how we can encourage the support of that in the industry. And I'll elaborate here. Sustainable environmental practices is a good where to start. Waste management, access to water at festivals, porta potties, a place to comfortably rest when people are unruly. What do you think we can do better in the industry on those regards?
I mean, I don't know. I don't know a whole lot about that aspect of it, you know, as far as like logistics and stuff like that. It seems like the obvious answer would be make sure there's enough porta potties, make sure they're getting cleaned up, but then the issue is there not being enough money for that to happen.
Here are my solution to this. Sell less tickets. Sustainability.
Well, this
Finance your
For more
pricing.
money?
that's a great point.
No. If you don't have the funds to cover having enough porta potties, sell less tickets.
You don't need to book
You
bigger
don't-
and better shows every
Bingo.
time. You
Bingo.
like
A
we-
sustainable
We've
practice.
seen events where there are local promoters in both New Hampshire and Maine right now that could whatever show they throw, they could easily draw 100, but they don't always want to do that. They want to I want to book the show and draw 500,
Yeah.
and consistency is key. So if you think that you can make money off these shows but not these ones, maybe you should just only be booking those shows for now.
I think also too there's a lot of like special treatment with the people that run and organize festivals. Like Charlie was saying earlier, is they put a lot of the work onto other people to make their show happen.
Right.
We as people who are in charge of events need to do a better job at being the ones that are running our event.
Yeah, I think right. I think that it's important that the person organizing the event be heavily involved in all of the operations of the event. You know, if we're talking a festival,
Yeah.
you know, and be like they should be more focused on making sure that the volunteers and people are getting, like, I understand that's what a volley coordinator is for, you know, but sometimes the shit falls through the cracks, and it's like ultimately like it's your event. You need to be the one that's like concerned about all these things that could potentially go wrong.
Organizers need to stop being so laissez-faire and allowing things to happen. Because what can go wrong will go wrong. The more people that you have, the more chaos that there will be. So to combat this, a smaller event that's more well organized, that has more access to needed things and facilities, also having the correct medical team on site to handle certain situations when people get out of hand. Like, you shouldn't have volunteers dealing with somebody who's
Right.
out of their mind on LSD.
Definitely not.
And you need a professional to handle that
Yeah,
because they'll know
there should
what
be
to
a
do.
trained medical person.
You don't
dealing
send
with
a
somebody
volunteer
who's
to deal with
having
that.
like an episode. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think education in etiquette in general is just so
Exactly.
important. It's, we're setting the precedent, like you said, and people are going to behave the way that we behave. And even if we behave the best we can, there will still be a few people who just want to get rowdy, just want to go hard.
The other thing too is like, you know how like there are special green rooms or behind the scenes areas where artists can chill?
Oh, sure.
We should have one of those available for staff that are overwhelmed, that need a break, and somebody who's willing to relieve that said person so that they're not the one in that position of power for an entire 5 days on lot. It's too much. You got to have a break so that that person like can mentally juggle so much, access to a place to rest, a meal, and like, hey, this is what's going on. I need someone else to deal with this for a while. There needs to be like 2 people that can interchangeably do the same position at the same time.
Love it.
Yeah, I think that's great. Especially if you're trying to do it in shifts. I mean, you can't just rely on 1 or 2 people. It's great to have a couple of people that, really have the lowdown together. And like we said before, everyone wants their shift to be over. So having somebody that, is just willing to take those tasks in the first place immediately becomes valuable to me.
Right.
Do you want to maybe do like one more strong question and then wrap it up?
I got 2 more things to
Okay.
address, and then we're good.
Okay, cool. Because I want that to last too. But
Okay.
you said it about an hour. Yeah. Okay.
So the next thing I want to touch on is, you know how in the industry that a lot of people online, the buzz online is that people are complaining and upset about the cost of vending. And the cost
that's
of
a hot take.
Yeah,
Hot
food
topic.
vending and clothing and apparel and goods. What can we
Interesting.
do to circumvent their fears on being overpriced?
Well, you're talking about the vendors themselves being worried about the vending prices being too high for the amount of money they're going to generate.
Yes.
I think a lot of it has to do with the logistic. Again, this goes back to like your previous question about logistics of a festival or an event. That it kind of ties back into that whole.
I think that there's too many vendors.
Or that they're just not being placed properly. But
That as well.
I agree. There's probably an abundance of them because the greedy event organizers are trying to squeeze as much vendor
Right.
money as they can, and with disregard to how much that's going to thin out the market for the vendors.
I think sustainability on this, less vendors at a more fair cost so they have access to more clientele to buy their stuff. Because let's say if you have a festival and the vending slot is $1,000 or more, major festival, right? And you have 500 other vendors there. What are the chances you're going to make that $1,000 back on top of your cost to travel there?
Right.
Especially out of state. That's a black hole of money. I can see why a lot of people that were our once favorite vendors are no longer vendors.
I will note that I have been noticing a lot of the smaller local shows have been doing like no vendor fees, and they
I
just
like
want
that.
they just want like we were gonna do.
Right.
Unfortunately, Gensified Designs couldn't make it
She was under the weather.
to our show last weekend, but we weren't gonna charge her anything. You know what I mean? Or and Hayes wasn't gonna charge. They don't charge. They're like, I mean, it's probably specific to the event, but all the times we've gone, there's never been a charge for a vendor to come, and I think because that's smart, because it's cross promotion and it's just going to cross pollinate fan bases with whoever the event is organizing the event.
A lot of this comes down to negotiations still too. Like typically I see sponsorships do well because they're providing something in value automatically.
Yeah.
Whether that's giving away freebies or whether that's helping with the show or some sort of coordination. I see sponsorships typically doing well, and I think that like if you at any point in the scene, if you can provide some sort of value, you get noticed a little bit more.
Yeah, I agreed.
Okay.
Something to set yourself apart.
All right. Last thing I want to touch base on, and this goes into the label side of things a little bit, making the industry a more inclusive and diverse place, offering support and resources for emerging artists. ISR Collective, as a label, we provide that service to underground artists who we want to help reach the broader audience, who other labels are being overlooked by, and how can we do better to keep supporting artists like this and do things differently than some of the major labels that are our competition?
This is a tricky question for me because I might be biased in this category. I'm willing to share my bias, but like when I first met you
Let's
guys,
hear it.
you know, first of all, for the listeners, you got to thank Charlie and Sam because I've pitched to them in the past, like, hey, you should create tiers in your label where, you know, there's a buy-in if you want X amount of promotion. And Charlie and Sam have been like, you know, we would do that if we grow, but like we're not really interested in that right now. And they're really for the people in this category, which is why maybe I'm biased because I personally don't feel like I could try and run a label without having some sort of tier incentivized program. And you guys knock it out of the park with that. So I feel like maybe you even have better insight than I would in this category.
I think your insight on this was actually very important. We have touched on this topic before, like Drake said, and you're not the only one we've touched on this topic with. I feel the incentive of building the brand is there, like long term. People have an interest, and we also allow the artists to keep like 70% of their royalties. You know, and they're like a free agent. They don't have to sign a contract with us. We don't own them or tell them what to do. They come to us with their submissions and their art, and whether it's like at a degree of like professional quality, you know, submission, and that we take that into consideration, whether it like fits the category of it's at this level of other stuff on the label. We're not gonna like outwardly tell someone no because we want to take advantage of their skill level, or say yes because their skill is too good, or if it's not good enough. We want to like incite that, like, hey, we can help you if you want to work with us over time. So to elaborate on more of that, it's necessary if we were at a bigger ball game of income, bracket of income, money, and traffic and stuff like that. Like, we fund everything out of our own pockets. So it's hard for us to incentivize other people to spend money and have more accessibility to us. And that plays into favoritism and also gatekeeping.
It ties into gatekeeping a lot because just like we mentioned before, it's like obviously I think it goes without saying that we want to support the artists who are really putting in the work. Like they deserve it.
It's the same kind of thing as like pay to play. I'm not doing that.
Yeah, of course. But that's why I said maybe I'm biased there because
it's
a
not a
very
bad
tricky
idea, but in the future when we are a bigger label and have more like power of like our reach, it's a good possibility that we, you know, talk to a couple of folks.
We're still building up as far as a label goes, because when you think about like what does like a what's like a major like electronic label like on like
Disciple.
Okay, Disciple.
Wakan.
Okay, Wakan. That's because I'm familiar with Wakan, so let's just go with Wakan. What is Wakan doing? What does Wakan the label do for their artists? They release music under the Wakan label. Mm-hmm. Do they book the shows for the artists, or is it just the getting the music out?
They do both.
They do both. Okay.
I model what we do with Interstellar Rabbit Hole off of Wakan's example, but I do it in a different fashion.
Right.
Now, you have to understand about Wakan is they were a label founded by a very famous music producer. And all the producers on their label are already big names.
Right, so they already had
They have the traction.
They already had that, you know, where so what they're doing as a label is they're creating traffic to their artists.
That's right.
You know, and that's essentially, I think, is the biggest like asset to being a label, is how much traction can you draw to something. And we're not at that level yet to be able to ask people for money for that. Like we're starting to see, like, you know, when we go out to shows and stuff like that, and like from comments from people online, that we're starting to we're starting to get noticed by people that don't know who we are.
We're creating that ripple.
Yeah, exactly. And then eventually it will hopefully like tidal wave into something where we can make it a sustainable thing where now we can invest more time and energy and money if we're getting paid by the artist to be able to promote them more heavily, and like, you know, because all we can do right now as this tiny little label is pitch to playlists and stream the music while we're at home and send it to groups and reshare it on Facebook stories and stuff like that. That's all we can really do right now, and we're only reaching the people that are following us.
The important part of what we're doing as a label is we're reaching other artists who are on the threshold of the potential to blow up. We consider ourselves like that stepping stone.
Right.
Whereas like, hey, we helped this artist reach that broader audience and now they're flying. To
right,
me,
and that will trickle down too eventually. You know what I mean?
What
like,
if one of the artists that worked with us eventually goes on to like Wakan or something?
Right, and they'll be like, hey, look at this, you know, this
Humble
label
beginnings.
helped us out.
They helped us out. If you want to start out, they'll support you.
Yeah, I mean, I think that like what you guys are doing is real, and you know, I've talked to other artists.
We care about the music and the people.
I've had artists ask about you guys and like, what do you expect in return? And you know, I've explained to them that like how the royalties work when you put songs through distro and stuff. And when we were negotiating with Victory, you know, they said it was a $500,000 sign-on bonus, but it's really a $500,000 recoupable loan. They wanted us to be in a 360 deal, and they were going to give us upfront money, because I believe the current statistic is it takes about $2 million to break an artist.
Yeah.
And you know, they were going to give us a $500,000 sign-on bonus. They wanted 3 to 5 albums. We were still in negotiation for that. And we would have been locked in for 3 to 5 albums. They would have pumped and dumped some money for tours, for merch and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But all that money they expect to be recouped.
That is all great points. And that's another reason why we chose to do the label differently, is we want to do exactly the opposite of what all major labels are doing. We want to give a platform and a voice to musicians and musicianship and artistry as an art form. We want to collaborate with people, grow the network, and really show people that we can do this and be the change that we want to see, and we don't have to sign our souls away to a major label to do so. We don't have to sign that $1 million contract and be owned and thrown on the road for years at a time with no rest, and having to pay that back over your head, and being controlled as to what kind of artistry your form is going to take. We want the artist to have the freedom to choose what they so do.
The one thing I do like about the EDM scene label standpoint is that they treat singles individually rather than trying to get multiple records out of people, which I think is pretty cool, actually. It gives you a lot of options to play with.
Yeah.
And like, you guys have been able to, you know, branch out your genres a little bit. You know, like, you're able to pitch individual singles with your lo-fi stuff, as well as continue on with like hip hop and different elements.
That's another
of music.
important point to make, is that we don't stick to one genre, and that by doing all these different aspects, we're able to open our collaboration network like to wider than if we were just trying to do dubstep or just trying to do lo-fi or whatever.
We're also opening our fan base to multiple places as well, because I like jam band music, I like EDM, I like heavy stuff, I like lo-fi stuff. I'm all over the board. I like funky stuff, and I love hip hop. And our label gives artists the opportunity to express all of their multi-genre ideas without being mushed into a box. We're like, it has to be like this. We're looking for this specific thing. We want the new, the fresh, the different, the unique, the stuff that don't fit in the box. Give it to us. Send your submissions now.
Right. And we can we have a link on our link tree that you can submit music to if you so choose to.
One thing I think labels could do differently in today's era, but it's so tough with social media, is I think a lot of artists nowadays get put in spotlight for the wrong reasons. And like, we've seen promoters who book people who literally just go on their Spotify, look at their monthly listeners, see how many followers they have, say, oh, that's good, I'm going to book them. And that doesn't, like, that guy might have a great online presence, but that doesn't actually tell you whether or not he or she's going to draw.
True.
Well, that's a good point. Like, I'm not going to name the artist, but that's something very similar happened to us when we were promoting a show, and it goes back to saying about when we worked with other people and not just doing everything in-house, is that, this promoter wanted us to add another artist onto the bill that we'd never heard of before, never met before, because they had a big draw in California. They have a bunch of listeners on Spotify and shit like that. Come the day of the show, 10 people in the crowd, 10, 15 people in the crowd. And granted that there's other factors at hand, and that's why I'm not naming this artist, because I'm not saying it's because of the artist, but I'm just saying that goes to show you that it's like they're not just, the numbers don't always equate to how many people are going to buy tickets.
Exactly.
and who's going to show up. And then on the other aspect of that too is that it's not good when artists show up with their clique of friends and then immediately leave after their set and like thin the dance floor out. It's like it almost is like worse, in my opinion, when like there's a bunch of people on the dance floor and then you see a bunch of people leave. Like seeing that as a spectator, not in the crowd of people that are leaving, you're kind of like, what's going on? Like
Can you
you're just like, I want to
imagine
leave now
what
because
that
all these people
feels
just
like
left.
to the next artist
Right.
performing like they did something wrong.
Right, exactly.
It affects the mental health and the effect of how the rest of the show is going to go.
Well, it creates essentially drama in the scene too, because then you feel salty about it later, and if you ever get presented another opportunity to work with this person, you're like, do I really want to play this show with this person if it's going to be the same way?
Right.
If you're also collaborating on a show and you're bringing in other artists and other crews where it's like a half show, the other part of it too is that you will draw on more crowd, but what you can't control will bring more chaos into the equation.
Yeah.
So there's more moving parts.
Variables, yeah.
Variables.
All right.
One last thing. If you are a multi-genre artist, and this goes on Bookability and Plays and Traffic Online, if you produce more than one thing, you're going to tap into more than one network. I just want to say thank you to the lo-fi community for supporting Closed Loop and Svspension and helping us reach a broader audience and getting our plays and follows up on Spotify. We really appreciate you guys. You're amazing. So I encourage any artist who has interest in more than one genre to tap into other markets, because you never know what that door can open up for you. New collaborators, new friends, new people to support you. Boost your numbers all around and your plays. So thank you and share the love.
Yeah, definitely don't hold yourself back just because you feel like this is what people want. Because the crazy thing about new music is we don't know what we want until the new thing comes out and we like it.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so if you might have that secret song that just everyone resonates with, but because it's not the current thing happening, you really
It'll
can't
get overlooked, maybe.
Yeah, you really can't hold yourself to that kind of thing.
I want to go back to what Closed Loop said in the beginning of the podcast episode here, that make music for yourself. Don't make it for your fans or the fans you could possibly have. Because if you stay true to you, you never know what new individual interest will be inspired by your new creation.
Absolutely. That's such a good point. And not just that, too. Like, if you make a song that you don't personally like and then other people do like it, then you're stuck playing that song forever. And you really don't want to get sucked in a loop of being an artist that plays music that they don't even enjoy.
Exactly.
Just for the sake of other people.
Yeah, I agree with that. That being said, we have a new release that was released recently on ISR Collective by artist Squirrel called Character Creation. Y'all should go peep that if you haven't.
He's amazing.
Amazing artist, amazing electronic music producer. And then coming up next for our next drop, we have Moon Island dropping their track Encounters, which is the single off of an EP that they're going to be dropping with us in September. So that's coming in August 2nd. Y'all get ready for that. And yeah, that's going to be it from me. How about you?
Thank you, Closed Loop, and thank you, Maango, for participating in this episode. We greatly appreciate all the love and support for anyone who's ever worked with or heard of Interstellar Rabble Collective, or otherwise known as ISR Collective. the support for the community means so much to us, and without it, we can't continue to make events happen or release music and put people out there. So let's continue to be the change and create more industry dialogue. Thank you so much.
We love you guys.
Peace
Can't
out,
do it
Love
without
you.
you.